if everybody's good with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I just want to say thank you. Okay. Okay, so here we are. I hope people can see this. This is for World Migratory Bird Day, and the name of this workshop is Get to Know Your Neighbor, the Chimney Swift. And here you can see a picture of a chimney swift right there on the right. Okay, so I want to thank everybody, first of all, for being here, because I know we come from all walks of life. Some of us are birders, some of us are gardeners, some of us work in conservation, and it's our shared expertise and collaboration that I think is really wonderful to have us all together. Today is World Migratory Bird Day, which is a global celebration of migratory birds. It's multiple organizations working together on conservation and education to create a worldwide campaign that is organized around the planet's major migratory bird corridors, and to really help people understand how important and special these migratory corridors are. And if you're here in New York City, where I am, we are on the Atlantic Flyway, and that is also a really important migratory bird corridor. And like I said, I'm with Washington Square Park Eco Projects, where we monitor biodiversity in urban parks. We focus on education, community science, and we are advocates for the ecological health of New York City's urban parks. Okay, so chimney swifts. I'm going to talk a little bit about chimney swifts here in North America. This is World Migratory Bird Day, and chimney swifts are a migratory bird. They're long distance migrators. They come here to breed during the summer and spring and into the fall, and they winter in the upper Amazon basin, and that could be Peru, Chile, Ecuador, Brazil, and very little is known about them in the winter grounds. They're the most aerial of our aerial insectivores. They nest in North America, the entire US, eastern US, and into southeastern Canada. And in the fall, they do this amazing thing where they roost together in large numbers. Now, prior to the colonization of the United States, chimney swifts probably used hollow trees in old growth forests, and possibly also rock outcroppings for nesting and roosting. And speaking of pre-colonization, I want to just say that the land that I'm on here in New York City was once Lenape land. So prior to the colonization, they used more natural surfaces for their nesting and roosting. As the colonizers cleared the forests, they built very Eurocentric structures. And these structures included masonry and stone chimneys, and the chimney swifts adapted to using these chimneys for breeding and roosting as forests were being cleared. So a little bit of information about chimney swifts. Chimney swifts are a vulnerable species, and the numbers in their population are currently in decline. They are, like I said, aerial insectivores, and that means that they eat insects, and they eat small flying insects. And when I say small, I mean that the insects are really 5 millimeters or or less. They're very small insects. 60% of their diet comes from the order Diptera, which is flies and mosquitoes. And a chimney swift family can eat up to 12,000 insects a day. So they're really effective insect eaters. They have a lot of very unusual behaviors. The most interesting one is that they cannot perch upright. So they're flying all day long. They're just flying, flying, flying. They can't perch on a branch. And so the only way they can come to rest is on a vertical surface where they have teeny tiny feet and they cling with their feet to a vertical surface such as a masonry chimney. Otherwise, they're always in flight and they do almost everything in flight. They're considered a vocal bird, and they sometimes exhibit a really erratic bat-like flight and sometimes a gliding flight, and they're often very fast. Their habitat is the sky, and their microhabitat is the chimney that they would roost or nest in. They often are at very high elevations, and they are frequently seen in urban and suburban areas in the summer, where they nest and roost in masonry chimneys. Okay, so let's take a look at the nesting habitat for chimney swifts. There's really only these two types of nesting habitat in the United States, although there still might be some that are nesting in hollow trees, but typically they would be nesting in a masonry chimney, like is seen here on the left. And this is a large masonry chimney, and it's located in New York City in a school. And it's used as both a nesting and a roosting chimney. That means that chimney swifts nest in there, they raise their young, and then in the fall, great numbers of chimney swifts roost here in preparation for migration. When they sleep at night, they come and all sleep here together in the roost. So on the right, this is a swift tower, and this is from Georgia. Swift towers are conservation tools, and they're made specifically to give swifts a place to nest. And what the research has found is that swifts readily will nest in a swift tower, especially if there are no masonry chimneys available. It seems that if there are lots of masonry chimneys, chimney swifts will choose the masonry chimney. If there's not an abundance of masonry chimneys, then they'll readily nest in a swift tower. One thing about this masonry chimney here, two things actually. If you take a look at it, there's a metal pipe coming out of the top. That chimney has a metal lining in it. And the chimney swifts are unable to roost in the metal part. It's too slick for them to hold onto. So this is a problem with a lot of the masonry chimneys. How they become unsuitable is they're lined with a smooth surface. And this chimney still has some areas where the chimney swifts can get into it because they always enter on the left. To the masonry part right there, and they don't enter, we hope they don't. Occasionally I've seen them go into the metal chimney, and that's actually not good because they don't always come out, but they fly in here. And then right here, these two other birds, those are two American kestrels that just happened to be sitting there when I took the photo. Okay, so like I said, chimney swifts are a bird that's in decline. And there are many factors that are contributing to the population declines. And these factors have to do with things that are going on in the winter range and the summer range and during migration. And remember that chimney swifts are long distance migrators. So one thing that's affecting chimney swift populations is agricultural intensification. And part of that is because with agricultural intensification comes use of pesticides. Pesticides have contributed to a worldwide decrease in insect populations. And now with chimney swifts, along with the decrease in their prey base, they can have what's called carryover effects from eating insects that are affected by pesticides. So if you look over on the right, you'll see a little box and it says carryover effects. Basically, what that means is they might be in their winter grounds and they're eating a lot of yummy insects, but instead, some of those insects are affected by pesticides. So they eat and eat and eat, and they eat the pesticides and they eat the ones without pesticides. But then what they've eaten in their winter grounds carries over and affects the chimney swifts during migration, even if they're no longer eating insects that have pesticides. And it can even carry over even further and affect the breeding quality. And carryover effects can affect chimney swifts far beyond the breeding time. Additionally, it's possible that there's bioaccumulation in the bodies of the chimney swifts. And it would be a bioaccumulation of pesticides. And that's the gradual buildup of toxins in a living organism. And bioaccumulation impacts species higher on the food chain. And that's because each insect has a little bit of pesticide in it. But when you add up those thousands of insects that a chimney swift might eat each day, it can really bioaccumulate and biomagnify in the chimney swift's body. And on top of this, in the winter range, there are many pesticides still being used in agricultural practices. And many of the pesticides that are banned here in North America are still in use in the winter range. So there's definitely range-wide effects. Okay, and on top of that, there's other factors that contribute to the declines. For example, climate change. Climate change and increased severe weather events really are affecting chimney swift, and it's the weather events, especially during migration, that are most difficult for chimney swifts. So like I said, chimney swifts are unable to perch upright, and instead they only can cling to a vertical surface. So if there's a big weather event, let's say a big storm, and a lot of chimney swifts get grounded, that means during migration, they end up on the ground. What happens with most birds, or many birds that get grounded during a big storm, they wait it out, they dry off, and then they fly off. But with chimney swifts, it's sort of like that old commercial, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. Basically, the chimney swifts, they, when they end up on the ground, unless there's some surface that they nearby that they can climb up onto into a vertical position, they're grounded, and this impacts the chimney swift population. Also, loss of nest and roost locations may be a factor, and this happens as chimneys are capped, mostly in suburban areas. Chimneys are lined with smooth surfaces, like in the example we saw earlier. And when chimneys are demolished, with a decrease in in the number of large urban chimneys. And I want to talk a little bit about that. On the photo on the right, you see one of these large industrial chimneys. And these are really important for chimneys when they're roosting. It's a big chimney. It can accommodate many thousands of birds. And what's happening is as our industrial landscape is changing, chimneys like this are being demolished because they're not in use anymore. Additionally, habitat changes, such as a decrease in old growth forest, which often means an increase in agricultural lands. And then also changes to the sky when we think about the sky as a habitat, because changes in the sky may include buildings going up, it may be communication towers, all these things affect chimney swifts and in fact all migratory birds. Okay, so here I'm showing you the range maps of both chimney swifts. That's map number 1, and then Vos swifts. Both chimney swifts and Vos swifts are Chatura swifts. And the chimney swifts here you can see, look at that big breeding range. All that pink in the northeastern part of the United States, actually the entire eastern part of the United States. That's all chimney swift breeding range. And then over here, this is the Vos swift. And as you can see, Vos swifts don't migrate as far as chimney swifts, but they still go quite a distance. You might be thinking, oh, look at those poor people in these states right here. They don't have any swifts. Well, they don't have any Chatura swifts. They do instead have an awesome swift called the white-throated swift, which if you ever get a chance to see it, you'll really like it. But Vos swifts and chimney swifts look very similar. I can't really tell them apart, but they do have they do sound different. But that's hard to tell apart too. And I've got Vos swifts here because we're going to see them a little later on. Okay, so how to find swifts. I think looking for swifts is really fun, and it's a little bit of a challenge, and there's many ways to find them. So one of the things you can do is look to the skies. And like I said, chimney swifts fly at all elevations, but they're often high up. They're often above the buildings, and they're often above the treetops. And so you really have to kind of be looking up and look for that like fast, erratic thing flying around up there. You could also see them flying low too. In fact, just today I saw chimney swifts in Central Park drinking water low over the boat pond. And you can see them also over the Central Park Reservoir, where they at times put on a great show. When you see chimney swifts, they could be single, they can be in pairs, or they can be in groups of any size. And oftentimes when you see them, they're in quite large groups. Okay, so one thing, if you want a real challenge, so now you know how to look for chimney swifts, but now you want something really challenging, you can start to look for nesting behavior. That is happening right now. Chimney swifts are in New York City and all over the eastern US right now, and they're exhibiting their nesting behaviors. One of the things that you might see is chimney swifts flying and breaking off sticks at the treetops, which is a pretty neat thing to see. And you might see them and you wonder what they're doing up there, and they're most likely breaking off sticks at the treetops. And they'll take the sticks back one by one and visit the chimney that they've chosen. And in that chimney, they'll start to glue together the sticks, and they glue it to the vertical wall using their saliva. They have super sticky saliva, which just can glue sticks together. And they'll go back and forth from the tree to the chimney, breaking off those sticks and gluing them together stick by stick. And if you see a pair visiting a chimney, that means very likely that they may be exhibiting nesting behaviors. And inside the chimney, they'll do things like preen together, uh, and that is a courtship behavior. The other thing you might see at this time of year is a chimney swift entering and exiting a chimney at frequent intervals throughout the day. It might be 20 minutes or 30 minutes or every hour. What this means is that the chimney swifts are likely feeding their young. So if you see that, and if you see any of these behaviors and you can report them on eBird as a breeding behavior, it's a really great way to contribute to community science and start to build more data about these super mysterious birds and their super mysterious behaviors. Nesting behaviors can be really hard to see, and they happen very quickly. Okay, let's see. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now, this is what people really think about when they think about chimney swifts, and Vo swifts for that matter too. What we're looking at right now is a video of chimney swifts at a roost location, which is located on Central Park East, kind of in the area where the little boat area is, where people sell those little sailboats. And between August and October, chimney swifts begin to gather in large numbers. At this point in time, the chimney swift young have fledged, they've left the nest, and so they're getting ready to fly off and migrate. But they spend a lot of time eating a lot of insects. There's a lot of insects at that time of year. And so they're building up their fitness, getting ready to migrate. And they'll start to gather in these large groups where they congregate at dusk. And there can be thousands of birds. And interestingly enough, they enter the chimney feet first. So you see them going down into the chimney now. You can see these groups. But in fact, right before they go into the chimney, or just after, they turn around and they go in feet first. And it's hard to see in this video, but we're going to see it better in another video. As we're watching this video, I think this is a good time. If there's any questions, Georgia, I'll go ahead and answer questions as we watch the video, and then we'll go on. We're at about the halfway point.
Sure, there is a question. And Leslie asks, should we encourage our parks department to put up chimney swift houses?
That is a great question. I think from what I've read, in New York City, there seems to be ample chimneys for chimney swifts to nest and roost. In a place like New York City, where we have so many chimneys, I think the value of a swift tower is as an educational tool, where you can have signage and information about chimney swifts. And for that reason, I think they are good to have in a park. It's unknown how well they would be utilized by the swifts, but they would be a great educational tool.
And I have a question about the way that the chimney swifts, when they enter, if they're not heading in feet first, once they're in the structure itself, they go down feet first. And maybe you'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's very curious and particular to this species.
It is, and it's actually very hard to see too. And I've actually spent a long actually more hours than most, looking at chimney swifts and trying to see them turn around and go in feet first, because as you can see there, and I'm not sure you can get this from this video, but they're all flying together and they're all going the same direction. In this video, it kind of looks like they're not going the same direction, but what you're really seeing is that they're kind of going around in a circle and they're all following one another, and then they'll drop down. There they go. You see there's these small groups dropping down into the chimney. And it's right as they enter the chimney that they just kind of flip themselves around and go in feet first. And this seems to make it possible for them to be able to grasp on when they get in. And the last video I show you, it's of Beauswifts, but you're really going to be able to see how that happens. And here they go. You can just see them dropping in as one group after the other.
There are a couple more questions at this point. Kathy asks, have you seen any images of a chimney swift nest?
Yes, I have. And there are some chimney swift towers, which are, not the masonry chimneys. And they have been pretty well documented, the chimney swift nesting process. And if you search online, you can see those images. Additionally, a lot of times, this is really odd, but a lot of times homeowners will have chimney swifts nesting in their suburban home chimney, and then they don't even realize, but then they hear a strange noise coming from their chimney, and then they call an exterminator. And exterminators are not allowed to remove a chimney swift nest, and actually are supposed to just encourage homeowners to just wait it out. But there are often, if you look on extermination websites, if you search chimney swift and nest, you'll get a lot of these pest extermination websites, and it shows pictures of chimney swifts in the nest, kind of with somebody has shown a flashlight down. I have never had the opportunity to see that. I would love to see what that looks like, but I just haven't had the opportunity. Okay, so
Oh,
there,
Loyan, there's
yep,
one more before we move
absolutely.
on, and it's related to the chimney structure itself. Greg
Mhm.
asks, how do they survive the exhaust and coal burnout in the chimney?
That is a great question. So when the chimney swifts are roosting, it's at, remember, it's August, September into October. Um, Typically, it's not a time when there's as much exhaust and burning going on. But chimneys that are in use or that become in use while the chimney swifts are using it can also be impactful to chimney swifts. And in fact, chimney swifts are killed when a chimney is in use, especially if there's smoke. So a lot of times it's in suburban households. And then the other thing is a lot of these chimneys, they're not really in use anymore. And even in this chimney that we just saw, the chimney in the video that we just looked at, if you look at the chimney, again, there's a metal flue in it. So that is the building's current exhaust coming out of that metal flue, and all that stuff on the masonry part is not in use. But having a fire started in a chimney or some sort of smoke exhaust happening while chimneys are roosting, that's really detrimental to chimney swift populations and to individual chimney swift groups that are roosting. Okay, should I go on, Georgia, or is there anything else?
You're okay to proceed, Loyan. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Keep those questions coming. Okay, so now we're gonna watch something.
No, there's tons of
Well, they're gathering in really closely right now.
You see that? Just a little circle. This has really been quite a show.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Look at that.
Well, there they go.
There they go. Look at that. Yeah,
They missed out.
there we go.
Dad, they're
Come here, Nanny.
They're going in. Look.
so that's way up there. Yeah. So awesome.
That's the craziest thing. You know, you can explain it to people back in Indiana. No, they won't get it. Nobody would.
Yeah, yeah, there still is that one. So, oh, here they came. They're just joining.
Yeah, it's the fewest birds I've seen, but there's so much more organized. Yeah, it's still a lot, but it's not. I mean, I've seen them double, but they're not. Yeah, this is really more organized.
I mean, I think it's like, there's tons of birds.
Yeah, they just swirl until they all get in.
Okay, so the neat thing about this video that I like, and like I said, this is a very famous roost in Portland, Oregon for Beausoleil Swifts. The neat thing about it, this chimney is maintained for conservation. There's nothing obstructing the chimney. There's no metal flue. There's nothing running up through it. So the entire chimney is used by the Beausoleil Swifts. And you can see from the video just how many swifts can use a really big, well-preserved industrial chimney. And I just actually love this video. Okay, so moving on. We're going to go now, we're going to, moving on from what to look for, and now we're going to think about what to listen for if you want to see a chimney swift or find a chimney swift. Chimney swifts make basically only two calls. They make a rapid chipper call and they make single chip notes. There's other sounds they make too, but those are all sounds they might make at the nest or the nestlings might make, and so you probably would never hear those unless you have a house with a chimney swift nest in it. I'm now going to go to the Macaulay Library. We're just going to jump over here for a minute, and we're going to listen to this chimney swift recording. I like this recording because it has both the rapid chipper and the single chip notes. So here we go. This is what you would be listening for if you're going to find chimney swifts. Hard on it. Got some single notes. a more rapid dipper. So those are really the main sound that you would be listening for. And these sounds are happening right now, so keep your ears open. So like I said earlier, they're considered a vocal bird, and you just heard the sounds. I do question how vocal they really are. I agree that they're vocal birds, but I've been doing some research on chimney swifts at a nest location. And so the research I'm doing is only at the nesting location and only during the nesting season. It's not during the fall roost. And what I found is that 55% of the time, 55% of my observations of the chimney swifts, they are silent. So while they are a vocal bird, they are also silent about half of the time, which means they might not always be as detectable as we think they are. Okay, so here we go. So now we're getting really good. We are thinking about how we can find chimney swifts. We have an idea of what they look like and what they sound like. But in the air, there's often things that are very confusing, and they can be confusing when you look up. So the first image here is chimney swifts. And then if you look down the left-hand corner, there's an image of barn swallows. And then in the middle are bats. And then on the right-hand corner is a peregrine falcon. And all of these things can have a similarity, similar looking appearance in the sky. And people get confused by that sometimes. Interestingly enough, chimney swifts, which are small, they have a wingspan actually of about 14 inches, which isn't that small, but chimney swifts themselves are small birds. They can often kind of look like raptors when they're flying high up. So it helps to really start to think about their flight behaviors combined with where you're seeing them and the time of year you're seeing them. And if you are hearing any sounds. And many people have come to me in my neighborhood and said how excited they are that they've been seeing the bats, when in fact what they're seeing is chimney swifts. Okay, now to add to the confusion, many people think swifts and swallows are related, and even some of the best birders speak of swifts and swallows in the same breath. And they're actually not related. They are similar through convergent evolution, which is unrelated species which share or similar niches. They evolved to have similar traits. So the niche of both a chimney swift and a tree swallow is flying around out there eating insects right out of the air. So they evolved to have some similar traits. So here's the thing. Surprise. Chimney swifts are actually most closely related to hummingbirds. This often is a surprise to people because people perceive them as being very, very different. They share a common ancestor from quite a long time ago. And I'm going to try to say the word, and I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. Kypselus rowi, Kypselus rowi. That is their common ancestor. And the thing that makes them, their ancestor is the wing structure. And if you look at the chimney swift and hummingbird image, you can see how similar the wing structure is. Additionally, they have a similar eye structure, but it's not something you can see visually because it has to do with the proteins that the eye is made out of. And here's another thing about hummingbirds. They also eat insects. In fact, up to 60% of some hummingbird species, I'm sorry, up to 60% of the diet of some hummingbird species is insects. And while most people think of hummingbirds as nectar eaters because they see them sipping nectar from the hummingbird feeder that they so readily come to, they also eat a lot of insects. So next time you're watching a hummingbird, watch for it to sit from its perch and then sally out and capture insects. So they're insect eaters too. So chimney swifts are important because they provide important ecological benefits. And all of the aerial insectivores provide this benefit of eating insects. And this includes bats and flycatchers and other swift species and swallows. And chimney swifts are especially important concerning mosquitoes. There are 3 species of Aedes mosquitoes currently expanding their range in North America. And that's because of climate change and global trade practices. And the Aedes mosquitoes are very small. They're small enough to be chimney swift prey. And remember, chimney swifts eat prey that's 5 millimeters or less, so very little. And the Aedes mosquito is about that size, 4 to 5 meters. And they're global. They cause disease worldwide, and diseases like yellow fever and Zika. And what I'm showing here is the Aedes albopictus, which is the tiger mosquito. It's the one that we see most in New York City. And it's expanded its range and is now breeding in New York City. And it's very common in urban gardens and parks. And here's this lovely lady that we're looking at. Gardeners, if you're here, you've probably seen these mosquitoes because they've got these beautiful stripes on them. And they are out and about, and they're the perfect size for chimney swift prey. This is a CDC map of the estimated mosquito range from 2017. And as you can see, these mosquitoes are very likely to be breeding in our area. And they are not only dangerous, they're aggressive and pesky biters. They're active during the day. So since they're active during the day, they're active at the same time that the chimney swifts are feeding. And they also come out as the weather warms up. So they start to get active and present in our gardens and parks right when the chimney swifts are arriving. They're the perfect size for the chimney swift prey base. And like I said, they're predicted to expand throughout the entire US and Canada by 2050. So it's really important that we start to work to benefit the creatures that eat these mosquitoes, like chimney swifts, bats, swallows, and all the aerial insectivores. Okay, so what can you do? What can you do to help chimney swifts? You can reduce your pesticide use, and you can make food choices that reduce pesticide use. If you're buying strawberries and your strawberries come from Peru, unless they're organic, they probably had some pesticides used on them. You can help to gather data. You can by identifying, locating, and reporting your observations to eBird and other Swift specific tools. If you have a house and you live in chimney swift breeding range, you can avoid capping your masonry chimneys. You can educate others about the importance of the sky's habitat, and you can advocate for building codes that support chimney swift nest and roost habitat and support the idea of the sky as a habitat, which supports all birds. And also you can participate in a Swift Night Out event. And these happen in August and September across the country. And then if you want to learn more, here's some resources for community science. You can document your sightings at eBird. Many local Audubon chapters sponsor Swift Night Out and are developing or already have developed specific chimney swift monitoring programs. And the 6th Street Avenue Bee Garden, I know some of our members are here tonight. We have a Swift Night Out event in August or September. You can educate yourself and others about them and attend or organize an event for World Swift Day, which is June 7th, 2021. And you can learn more about them at Cornell's All About Birds site. That's a free site. And then Birds of the World, which is a subscription site. And then here's some citations. I want to give thanks, first of all, to all of you who've been here. You're here now. It's great to have everybody, and I appreciate you. I want to thank Jean Shum for some of the great photos that you saw, David Sibley for the sweet little chimney swift drawing that flew in, Bruce Yolton for his video, my brother Alon, who I'm going to play his music video at the end, and then our partner organizations, Inwood Hill Parks Conservancy, the Naval Cemetery Landscape, and the LES Ecology Center. 6th Street Avenue Bee Garden, which is a Swift Night Out location. And the garden members are really interested in these birds. And then also the New York City Earth School, which is home to an important roost. So before taking questions, I'm gonna go right now, we're gonna hear a video. This is by my brother, not a birder. I'm going to pause it for a moment. I want to tell you why I'm playing this video by this person who's a musician and who's not really interested in birds at all. He made this video and he used footage that he took from a roost, which is a Swift roost that I've been monitoring on the West Coast for some years now. And this particular footage he has shows how the swifts go in feet first. So that's what I want you to watch for here. Okay, and with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and we can go ahead and see if anybody has questions or comments, or if you have a share that you want to tell a Chimney Swift experience that you've had. I would love that too. And so Georgia, if there's any questions that
Sure.
comment.
So there are two questions. One is to get clarification on whether we should encourage the Parks Department to build chimney swift towers. And so I'll let you address that first, and then I'll ask the second question.
I think that, like I said, I don't think chimney swifts need swift towers in New York City or any place that there's a lot of masonry chimneys. I don't think they need them because it's uncertain if they'll use them, if they have a lot of other options. But so the reason for building them in a park would really be for the people. Does that make sense? Does that add clarification? I mean, I think chimney swifts are very overlooked, even though they're urban birds. I think that they're very overlooked and that people don't know about them. But I think if a chimney swift tower was built, that would encourage people to learn more about them. And for that reason, I think they should be included in parks. And maybe they would be used by chimney swifts. But we do have some, it has been shown, research has shown that in places where there are lots of masonry chimneys, about 75% of the chimneys go unused by chimney swifts.
Okay. So another question came in that is I can sort of loop on to the question you just clarified.
Mm-hmm.
And Patty is asking, where do chimney swifts need towers to be installed? I guess where are the gaps in human provided sites?
Mm-hmm. They seem to be most successful in their far northern range, like up in Canada. And I'm not sure why, but they're in use more in the far northern range, and also in places where there's been, let's say, gentrification is happening, and there's a city, and there's been an area that is a lot of industrial, and then it's gentrified, and that area is demolished, and then instead giant glass buildings are put up. That would be a great place for a chimney swift tower in parks like that, or on the buildings themselves. I actually think that swift towers could be included in new buildings, especially as chimneys are removed or demolished.
Okay. And the next question is from Ben. When a swift is not nest building or feeding nestlings, how long can they fly without having to land after leaving their morning roost?
That's a great question. The answer is we don't really know. We do know that chimney swifts fly all day and then come to roost at night. But there has been a study done with common swifts in Europe where they were geotagged, and they learned that common swifts fly for months at a time without landing, and that they even seem to sleep in the air. So what we see is that chimney swifts come to roost at night. But like I said, we don't know what goes on in the winter grounds. So it's possible that they can fly even longer than the full day. But that's something that still needs research. It's a great question.
And I guess we can open it up now if folks just wanted to unmute themselves and share their Swift stories.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let me know when I should put the link to the survey in.
Okay, why don't you put the link to the survey in now, Georgia? Georgia's going to put a link to a survey in the chat, and I'm hoping people who participated tonight will fill it out. And of course, you don't have to, but I'd love it if you wanted to. And does anybody have a Swift story? And no pressure, Leslie.
Hi, I live up in Washington Heights, and near Fort Tryon Park, there's a building. I'm not sure which one it is. It's on Cabrini Boulevard that has a chimney. And I see swifts there a lot. And then I see when I'm in Fort Tryon Park, overlooking the Hudson, you know, at 190th Street, and between that and Dykeman, there are many chimney swifts. I see that, and I see them at dusk. So maybe that's when they're going home. At first I thought maybe they were bats, but then I realized it's not dark enough for bats. And it's the first time I've really seen them. You know, even when I lived on the Upper West Side, I didn't really see them.
It would be awesome if you could see where they're roosting at night. Like if you could find that chimney they're going.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the school, Cabrini, what used to be Cabrini High School. I'll check it out and I'll let you know.
Thank you. That would be a great addition to
Okay.
just the knowledge base about them.
Now I'm going to worry about them. There's not enough chimneys.
Anybody else have a Chimney Swift story to tell? And no pressure. I know it's a long night and we're at the 8:30 mark.
I'll go ahead. Well, my Chimney Swift story involves another bird. It also involves Loyan and someone else on the call. I participated in one of Loyan's Chimney Swift studies, and in the sky was a common nightjar, and that was my first sighting of the common nightjar. So it was really special to have those two species in the sky together.
And I'm going to correct Georgia, if you don't mind, a common night hawk.
Yes, thank you. Common night hawk.
A nightjar would have been super cool. And so are nighthawks. Okay, well, if nobody else has a Chimney Swift story to tell.
I mean, you're hearing my cockatiel buddy.
Oh, I wondered about that.
Yeah.
Wondered.
So when I saw Greg's cockatiel, I could see my buddy there. It's really nice. So many bird lovers.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was great.
And thank you to all of you for attending. Remember, this is World Migratory Bird Day. So keep working to help those world migratory birds worldwide. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.